And we're back. Oh no, we lost Jacob!
Oh, where did he go?
Well, he said he had to leave. He had some family coming in, so...
He had to transform and roll out.
but as we heard, he's already delivered his thoughts on this episode, and he will return very briefly to give Hayden a cliffhanger question.
Exactly.
Which is to say, we will edit in his cliffhanger question.
But until then, we'll cover our last episode for today, the Master Builders.
Yeah. And sadly, it has nothing to do with Legos.
Unfortunately.
I'm sorry, Lego bricks.
There's been so many
Lego minifigures.
There's been Lego crossovers with Transformers in the past, but sadly not in this one. But in this one, Grapple and Hoist want to build Grapple's new solar power tower. But Optimus declines, fearing it would fall to the Decepticons. Hearing this, the Constructicons trick the duo into working with them to build the tower neutral of both factions. But once completed, they betray them to Megatron. The Autobots trick Devastator into crushing the tower and rescue Grapple and Hoist.
I love Grapple and Hoist. They're the two chonkiest Autobots.
Yeah. Design-wise, they're very blocky with very thin legs and stuff.
Yeah.
Very torso heavy.
Yeah. I like it. We got that. We were talking a little bit about diverse body types and features in humans, but we also get that a little bit in the Autobots as well.
Exactly.
But I love Grapple's little model of the solar power tower, and also just the name, the solar power tower.
Solar power tower
say,
rolls off the tongue.
But it's just the science project energy of this,
Exactly.
And then Wheeljack cheers him on, it's like, all right, and when you've built something that Wheeljack likes, it's pretty interesting.
When you've designed something that the insane mad scientist is actually like, hey, this is pretty cool. I don't know whether that's a point of concern or or a good signpost as to where. Well, also, if you think about it, Wheeljack's the most successful of the
he
scientists.
Builds the most stuff. Maybe that's what. See, that's the difference between him and Grapple. Is Grapple meticulously designs things, so he only puts out one thing every so often.
Yeah.
But Wheeljack just designs things very quickly and puts them out very quickly, and that's why they always blow up in his face.
I was about to say, he's got the most output.
Right. He's got the most output, not the best quality.
Exactly. Something I love about this episode is it introduces a dynamic that we see a little bit with Mirage, but not really. I think Transformers Cybertron gives it the biggest highlight, is civilian Transformers.
Yeah. This is the closest we have to a civilian episode in G1.
Yeah, and they are part of the standing army and the war effort and stuff.
Yeah. Hoist and Grapple both fight several times throughout the
right.
show.
But their main focus isn't combat. And
I'm sorry, Hoist Goes Hollywood is probably also a good civilian episode.
that is a very good civilian episode.
But yeah.
But
But none of them are safe from the Decepticons.
Right. What's so cool about this episode is that it zeroes in on how do you live your life and pursue the things that you want to pursue in the middle of an ongoing war effort.
Yeah.
And where does responsibility lie in, is it responsible to want to try to do something that isn't war-centered?
Yeah.
In a situation where it is survival, and even though the Autobots at this point have been pretty successful resource-wise, they're not really starving or anything.
Yeah.
That it's still they're constantly on the offensive and the defensive as well. So it's how do you responsibly allocate resources away from that war effort to pursue things what makes something worth pursuing during this time?
Because Grapple, there's a famous line, or at least famous in my head, from, I believe it's Desertion of the Dinobots, where Grapple's just I am an artist!
Yeah.
But he his solar power tower is aesthetically, I imagine it's even more aesthetically pleasing to a Transformer.
Yeah.
But
To us, it just looks like, oh, cool tower.
yeah, it looks like a cool sci-fi tower, whatever. But it also has a function, so it supplies energy. It would supply a lot of energy for the Autobots. And it would be a architectural marvel, and it would be, artistic.
Right. And that's mainly
Optimus
Grapple's...
agrees that it's a good idea, but he's concerned about the threat of the Decepticons, but it's kind of funny that they have to guard human power sources all the time. Are they just spread too thin at the moment, or... is it being Cybertronian tech going to create so much beyond human output that they can't risk this? Endeavor, falling into the Decepticons, which it does, and we see that it does put out a lot of energy.
Right. Because if you think about,
have they been holding out on humans, or has Grapple just now invented something totally new?
Yeah, this is all like subtextual and stuff, but based off of what we've seen, it's mostly the humans that are pushing the envelope on like advancing new technology and everything like that. Yeah. Because naturally you would.
Yeah, the Autobots are really kind of static in a lot of episodes where they just...
they're more reactive than anything else.
Right. They just defend things from the Decepticons. There are episodes where they build things like the Dinobots or the Immobilizer or whatever.
But again, Dinobots are WMDs.
Like, weapons to defeat the Decepticons, there's not as many episodes like this where the Autobots are endeavoring to create something that would just benefit through, generating power or artistic merit or something like that. Now, there are episodes where they're helping humans, like, guard their innovations or helping them create things and stuff, but this is one of the first times where it's specifically, kind of a civilian endeavor by one of the Autobots.
Right. And I do love that. I feel like this episode takes a lot of time to sit with characters and actually give us a good portrait of, like, pretty distinct character archetypes. Like, normally, a lot of times Transformers will fall into the character tropes and stuff.
Yeah, it's shorthand to help them stand out amongst the horde of other toys.
Right. But Grapple and Hoist on the surface are like, okay, Grapple, architect. Hoist. You don't really get a sense of him. He's more of just like kind of go with the flow, I guess.
He's like a mechanic. He's kind of like, a chill dude.
Like on the surface, it's like mechanic. He's a righteous dude. But it's like surface level, it's mechanic and architect. Right. But just from seeing them interact with each other and Wheeljack and how they interact with Optimus Prime as well, which also we get a wonderful cutaway several times in this episode of basketball Optimus Prime.
Yeah. It's got great robot dad energy.
Yes. He's absolutely dunking on Spike.
Yeah. It's funny, him playing basketball. And then there's like a whole scene later where they just got a whole basketball court. Like, did they convert the football court that they were playing with the Dinobots in Atlantis Arise? In opposition to Jacob, I actually really like those scenes now. Now, when I was younger, I thought it was dumb. But
it's very endearing.
I do like that it shows the Autobots are trying to learn more about Earth culture.
Yeah.
And they are trying to integrate more, like we've talked in other episodes, that they really adapt to the culture they're in, and they're more interested in having that relationship with the humans.
Yeah.
And, sports being a human pastime is a good way to interact.
And there's also, like, Cybertronian sports that are basically, copy and paste sports from Earth. But
Right. You had that one, was it last episode?
Yeah.
You had, Croc, who was a soccer player or a football player.
Yeah, he was the best Cybertronian Cup player.
Yeah. It's like, what is it? Parallel evolution.
Right.
Developed soccer. Which, I mean, soccer's pretty basic.
Yeah.
You kick the ball
you
around,
could see that.
In the goal. That's the basis of, like, a lot of sports,
Yeah.
is get the thing to the thing, right?
Exactly. You could see that evolving parallel and stuff. But, like, it's also a spectrum of how the Autobots interact with human culture. Like, Jazz, like, full deep dived into human culture. Mirage is more of, like, I don't really care. I just want to go back to Cybertron. But, tangent aside, Grapple and Hoist's dynamic is, it feels more nuanced than a lot of other characters, where Grapple is he's idealistic and he's not realistic per se. He's very like idea oriented, big picture, like, you know, I see this as a beautiful, you know, monument to art and architecture and everything like that. It's like, well, how are you realistically going to do that?
Right.
And then every time he comes up against some sort of obstacle or challenge, he gets really down on himself.
Right.
And thinks, well, the idea isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Hoist's dynamic with him is very supportive and loyal and uplifting, where he's actually willing to take the time to see the beauty of whatever idea Grapple has.
Yeah.
But he's also realistic in that it's like, well, let's actually consider the, like...
Yeah. How would we go about...
How would we actually accomplish this?
Like, hey, yeah, I would help you, but we don't have the resources.
Yeah,
to do
most
this.
of...
And Optimus Prime said, no!
Yeah. He's very much like Peacemaker sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where he wants his friend to succeed.
He's trying to comfort his friend, but he's also trying to keep him out of trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's really in line with... I won't go into depth reading the Transformers Universe profile books this time. But it's really in line with their profiles. Yeah.
And if you think about it, it also lines up with their vehicle forms, where Hoist tows. Like, he helps people out of situations.
Yeah.
And, but if you don't really have someone to help out of a situation, then a tow truck isn't really... It's a very specific job. Sort of thing. It needs other people to have a purpose.
It needs other people to have problems so it can fix it.
But I think it's like, it's really cool that they have this dynamic together that you don't really see a whole lot with. Most of the dynamics that Transformers have with each other are more of like combat, like, you're my bro, we're gonna go fight this thing. Yeah,
like Optimus and Ironhide.
The most that we've had, I think,
combat, buddy.
Like, nuance-wise, I think Mirage and Cliffjumper's dynamic is pretty... it's pretty severe, but... It is, like, a little more nuanced of, like, oh, well, he doesn't trust him because he's disillusioned with war.
Right, they have completely different viewpoints on the war, and that's why they don't get along, and sometimes...
Right.
But then they find common ground to, be friends.
But I think this is the first friendship that's not predicated on the action of war. Like, I could see these two interacting in a situation that isn't dependent on, like, Megatron's schemes or anything like that.
They might have been friends from before the war, and they were just, like, when they were just normal worker Autobots, building things and constructing things. Or even maybe they were... maybe they weren't friends before the war, but because they got assigned to the Ark, or they got... I think in the comics they were, like, in storage, and that's why they didn't show up right away or something like that.
Yeah.
Personality chips were in storage, and they built new bodies for them. But in here, our theory is that they came from Cybertron or from beyond Cybertron at the start of Season 2.
Yeah.
Along with all the other Season 2 people.
But I even could see these two,
they might have been, like... Because they ended up together... Their past experiences from before the war and their interests from before the war made them become friends.
Right.
They were able to relate to each other because they had the similar personalities and similar jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we'll even see later in this episode Grapple's reputation coming into play.
Yeah. I'll talk more about that later. I also like that they are kind of a rescue mechanic operation, like... when they go to rescue Powerglide, you're talking about him being a tow truck, so they go out and, and we see a little bit of Grapple's dissatisfaction with, during wartime, all I'm good for is, basically a glorified mechanic.
Right.
Which, I mean, being that they are robots, that's pretty important. He's basically a field medic, right?
Exactly.
You know, anybody that's a mechanic is also a field medic here.
But
you know?
he is he's a
kind of
frustrated
field
artist.
medic, but yeah, exactly.
But
it's interesting that crossover that, you know, I'm not saying that people in medicine aren't also artistic people. I'm just saying that there's less crossover of the field of medicine with the field of art, you know, than there is where the mechanic and the architect of Transformers also crosses over with the field of medicine in Transformers.
Well, it's the like timeless frustration of having to work a full-time job while pursuing a creative endeavor on the side.
Exactly.
Where you want the creative endeavor to support you and support yourself.
Yeah.
But it
compounded by you need to be doing the full-time job because there's a war, and if you don't do it, you know, people are either gonna die or you're not going to win the war, and then you'll never get a chance to do your endeavor.
Right. And
I sure hope he survives the movie so that he can have some peace.
Yeah.
I actually can't. I know he's in the movie for like
he shows up one frame.
I can't remember if he's canonically dead or not.
I think he survives.
We just never see him again.
Yeah.
Which implies to me that he's off somewhere building solar power towers.
Right. But it's even like what you mentioned with the power glide cutaway and stuff. It feels like this like Grapple and Hoist's whatever they get up to is happening in the background of like previous episodes of season 2 and stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is just a glimpse of like this is kind of what the sort of stuff that they were up to while all of these big things were happening in the background and stuff, where it's like, you know, Dinobot Island is happening and Grapple and Hoist are like, well, we got to go rescue not Power Glide because he was in that episode, but well, we got to go help this guy because he broke down on the side of the road, sort of thing.
Right. And we'll see that again. I think it's Blasters Blues, where the Autobots are kind of helping rescue just humans from disasters, which are caused by the Decepticons in the episode, because it wouldn't be Transformers if it wasn't.
Right.
You know? But it would be kind of neat to see like them just helping out with natural disasters sometimes, you know, in between fighting the Decepticons.
But I think like, and Cybertron does a little bit with it, but it's more of just the fact that they introduced the idea of civilian Cybertronians who are living on Earth, but have actively decided to not participate in the war effort for whatever reason. Yeah. And some of them are like, I just like human culture, or others are just like, I'm so darn scared that I'm going to get drafted.
Right.
Or others are frustrated because it's like, I can't believe that this side rejected me, so I'm going to go over to the Decepticons and stuff.
Right.
And when the plot line of a show follows a war, you obviously have the most interesting stories come from the actual war effort and stuff. Like the conflict and everything, because conflict makes for good storytelling.
Right.
But so much more depth is added when you take the time to show that there's stuff outside of the war happening.
Right.
And it gives so much more texture to the war.
Right.
Like, a war is only as interesting as, like, what are you fighting for? Sort of thing.
Yeah. That's a good point. You know, this does help kind of ground what the Autobots are fighting for. You know, because freedom is the right of all sentient beings is a great catchphrase, but at the end of the day, it's like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. You know,
does Grapple actually have the freedom to do the things that he wants to do?
Yeah. And I totally get it. I also understand why Jacob might have been annoyed with these characters.
Oh yeah.
But it also helps to show that he's just some guy. You know? there's just some dudes that are like, these are sentient beings, and they're trying to exhibit freedom.
Yeah.
To pursue their interests and whatnot.
It's
very steeped in American culture.
Right.
But
like, it's very easy to come down on Grapple in this episode because he's
the egomaniac.
Well, he's the egomaniac. He's like very pretentious and stuff, and he's not without his flaws. Like, it's not he's he's not sitting by the lake doing the Disney Princess "I Want" song.
Oh, thank goodness.
Well, yeah, but like it kind of feels that way where it's like, I just want to dream, I want to do and stuff, and I can understand being annoyed by that.
Right.
But I think it's important that he is like flawed. Like he's very moody. He gets down on himself, and also puffs himself up.
Right.
More than he probably should in both directions.
Yeah.
But I think that gives a lot of good storytelling when you have Hoist and the Constructicons enter the dynamic.
Yeah. Real quick, Hoist says he doesn't like the vibes, which could be a reference. And again, I'm not gonna pull out universe for this, but I did check the little camera box thing above his head. It's like the little gray thing with the 3 sensors on it. Apparently that's like a sensor thing, and he can, that's one of his powers, is that he can like detect all sorts of stuff and whatnot.
Cool.
So I didn't think it was important enough to bring out the book, but
it means he can sense when Grapple is feeling down.
He's got spider sense also, the vibes. But yeah, I think it's cool that the Constructicons are acting on their own volition in this episode in service of Megatron. They weren't commanded to find Grapple. They just saw an opportunity and they took it, and then they had to explain it to Megatron instead of, it being Megatron's scheme. And then also Megatron's just like, well, I guess that's a good idea. And but at first he's like, you traitors.
Yeah, like, I think the Constructicons' actions in this episode make a lot more sense when you've watched the core. And you get that glimpse of them feeling underappreciated by the Decepticons.
Yeah.
And it's small, but it's a glimpse. So it feels like it kind of informs this episode.
Even more so if you've seen the episode Secret of Omega Spring.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that they weren't always Decepticons.
Right.
According to Omega Spring.
They seem to brush shoulders with a lot of different people in...
They do.
Like, reputation-wise.
And also, Scrapper says they admired Grapple's buildings on Cybertron, which both gives Grapple his backstory, like we were touching on a little bit, and we can talk about more here, is that Grapple on Cybertron was already famous as an architect.
Yeah.
He was already creating masterpieces and stuff like that. And so it makes sense why he's so depressed here is the war has really taken everything. Like, if he's really compounded his identity, he's attached his identity to his projects, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Then he's really stuck on, I used to be able to do these things and now I can't because of the war, which, really adds to his depression, adds to his willingness to go with the Constructicons on the plan and stuff like that. But it also gives backstory. It further supports that the Constructicons were existing on Cybertron.
Yeah.
It could just be a general reference to he knows about it. Like
he could have even just read up on it. And it's like, I really admire your work.
Had some historic data archives or something like that that they've been watching or something like that. I don't know. But I think that this is the first glimpse of kind of backtracking on the whole, we built them in this cave kind of thing, which is further destroyed by the Secret of Omega Supreme.
Exactly.
We've touched on... if you want to hear our theory, it's not perfect because we kind of messed up on the Five Faces of Darkness bit, but we came up with a general theory that we'll work on more when we get to Secret of Omega Supreme about how the Constructicons were both built in the cave and existed on Cybertron. Go back and listen to our episode, I think it's 5, when we discuss War Dawn.
Yes.
It's the last episode of Season 1. But... anyway, I think that this is further support for the Constructicons existing on Cybertron.
It's absolutely like you can easily explain it as it's just a retcon, but
yeah. But
there's more.
We're Transformer fans. We go above and beyond.
Exactly.
we are literally doing a close read of a cartoon made to sell toys from the 80s.
But
this is our job.
But there's core material there.
We cannot. We can't. It's literally our job to not say, "Oh, it's just a retcon."
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
But I do love that, like, the Constructicons' ploy of trying to convince Grapple to, it's like isolating him.
Yeah.
Like, they already see that he's frustrated, so they see an opening and they're like, well, we can isolate him even further and get something out of this.
Yeah.
But even though it is like, everything they say with like, oh, we admire your work and stuff, you could just say that it's like, oh, they were lying to puff him up and everything.
Yeah.
But, and it's all coercion.
Yeah.
But I think there is sincerity there. Like, Scrapper saying they looked up to his work, I think that is true. And a lot of the interactions that the Constructicons have with Grapple on a construction site, I think are actually sincere. And
yeah, because I was thinking that a lot of the things that the Constructicons are doing are trying to bloat his ego so they can get all the secrets and lower his guard. Because there's a lot of scenes where they're like, I don't quite got it yet. Maybe you could show me how to do a few more.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like gathering information on how to make one of these on their own time,
right. You could easily read it as they're all just
also
like...
they just need his help, and they also just respect his work, and they want... They want to make sure they're doing it right,
Like, there's two...
Ultimately, though, it kind of brings into question, is Scrapper's plan for Megatron, is he like... when he tells Megatron, well, we were just telling them that so that we could build it and then take it for ourselves, is that Scrapper, justifying the endeavor to Megatron, or is... so that he can have the opportunity to work on this project,
right.
Or is it he's literally just like, yeah, this was my evil scheme all along.
Exactly. Like, I think there's two ways you can look at it.
Yeah.
One is that everything that the Constructicons do is underhanded and specifically to get something out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's all a ploy. It's all insincere. Like, we can't trust anything that they do as being genuine. Yeah. The other perspective, which I think, like, me personally, I see the Constructicons more of as jobbers than anything else. Like, they are Decepticons through and through, but they're more focused on the task rather than the reasons why. Mm. And...
another instance of Decepticon contractors.
Exactly.
Even though they've been brainwashed by the Robo Smasher, is it called the Robo Smasher?
Yes.
That there's still an essence of them in there as just your working Joes.
Right, and they're more closely tied to the Decepticons, but I think they're in the same position as, say, the Insecticons, where they are a separate party. They align with the Decepticons, except Insecticons are more country bumpkins, whereas Constructicons are more of, like, unionized workers sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, like,
I love the image of it just... they go on strike and they just transform into Devastator to unionize.
Yes.
They go on strike, they just start smashing things.
Devastator is the union.
Yeah.
But,
I'm on the Brute Squad, you are the Brute Squad.
I think it becomes infinitely more interesting when you look at them as actually being these dynamic characters that want to, like, they have their own drives and desires and goals.
Right.
And that when they... like, Scrapper being... we already established he's a genius, and he admires other geniuses.
Yeah.
Like, game respects game.
Right.
And I think there is, like, a genuine desire from him to work on something that Grapple wants to work on. Like, there's the reputation that he has. It's basically like working with Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
But... also, I think there's that dreamer aspect that the Constructicons, their frustrations come from just being used because they're useful.
Yeah.
and not actually being respected for the things that they want.
Yeah.
And this
Long Haul voices that all the time.
Exactly. Like, you get these little snippets of characterization from them where Hook is a snob, but he is, like, appreciative of, the finer things and stuff.
Right.
Mixmaster is a mad scientist, but he is creative and stuff. Long Haul constantly gets shoehorned into being the lifter.
Yeah, but he thought he was gonna get to build something.
Yeah, he just wants to be included and everything. So I think there is...
Bone Crusher is there.
And Bone Crusher, he's got treads.
He got tread pants.
Yeah. But I think that gives us room to actually, like, sincerely look at them as having more motivations at play in this situation.
Which is not something we very often get to see out of Constructicons, because 9 times out of 10, they're just the cool group of guys that build things and then combine into Devastator.
Right.
That's most of what we get out of them in other shows and stuff like that. But yeah, once again, this is the closest we get to the civilian side of Transformers in an episode.
And then I think, like, there is that genuine good reason for wanting to help Grapple. But he does have to justify it to Megatron as, like, well, we could use them. We can, steal all the stuff from them and stuff.
Right.
And I think that is, like, just that's a pressure from being in this group, and, like, he kind of has to justify it in the end.
Which is sort of what the whole episode is about, is like, Optimus cautions them against building it because they are afraid that it would fall into the Decepticons' hands. And then the Constructicons want to build it for the sake of building it, but also to go into the Decepticons' hands.
Right.
And then, like, Hoist is sort of his Jiminy Cricket,
Yes.
He's kind of his conscience, because, like, the Constructicons are bloating him up, puffing up his ego,
Right.
Whereas Hoist is trying to keep him grounded, but he's still also, like, tagging along to try to make sure that his friend is okay. And then the Constructicons are sort of like a shadow of what Hoist could become if he was doing this. Because you've been talking about, like, the Constructicons are doing this for their own ego as much as it is for the Decepticons, and that's kind of a dark mirror of what Grapple could become if he did build things just for his ego without thinking them through.
Without thinking about the consequences and everything.
Right. Because that's what the Constructicons are doing. They're not thinking about the consequences of when this gets into the Decepticons' hands. They just want to build it, right?
Right.
And they're willing to use the Decepticons for that purpose. Also, Megatron saying, "You must give them my most precious possession." Every time I watch this episode, I'm like, "What's it gonna be?"
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course it's Energon."
It's power. It's Energon.
And I always laugh at the fact that Megatron has a periscope camera in a very specific rock, in a very specific cannon, very specifically to spy on Constructicons and Autobots.
Yeah.
Like, what was he expecting to, like? Good job, you got it there for this one specific occasion, but, like, what were you expecting to accomplish?
Exactly.
The other, 98% of the time.
It only came in handy once, but that one time was very important.
Is that a road that the Autobots generally take to get places, or, like, I don't know, like, where is this?
You could read it as that's the Constructicons' hideout or something like that.
Maybe. See, I'm thinking the Constructicons' hideout is the giant Decepticon face in the canyon that may also be the caves where they built the Constructicons in Heavy Metal War.
Yeah.
But that was that's the Nightbird episode with the Decepticon logo base. Yeah.
The big one. But yeah, like, I think the Constructicons being united by Grapple's vision is, like, I think that is actually something that's sincere. It might not have started that way, But I think in the middle, it very much is sincere on all parties. Because, like, Hoist and the Constructicons are both united by Grapple, because Grapple has the vision. He has the idea.
Yeah.
Hoist values that, but he's never had the resources.
Right.
And the Constructicons' specialty is executing a plan.
Right.
They do the thing.
Yeah.
But they don't really get to be appreciated for having ideas of their own, because
Right.
Megatron's always function over form.
Right.
And
except when they built an Alligator-Con out of Optimus.
Exactly. But I think that's like the rare chance for the Constructicons to just go crazy with something.
Yeah.
And because they never get the chance to.
Right.
But Grapple gives them the sense that they get to contribute to a bigger goal, and they get valued for that.
Yeah.
But that only happens when Grapple starts getting over his finicky side and being like, no, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be just like this. And the Constructicons aren't really able to do that because he's not really getting on their level.
Yeah.
It's only through the construction montage that we see him actually like, oh, wait a minute, I actually have to like come get my head out of the clouds and get down and start doing the work so that people can like see what I'm seeing, sort of thing. And also like get myself off of my pedestal and actually do the work that it takes to do this, because that's where he always struggles, is that he never gets out of the idea space. And that's why he's so easily frustrated.
Yeah.
Is that he misses the trees for the forest. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think like there's that bridging point, there's that connection point where they almost reached a full middle ground.
Yeah.
And then everything goes to crap.
Right.
Which I love, because I'm a sucker for tragedy.
Yeah,
but man, is it sad to see.
Yeah. This episode really it does fall more into the tragic side by the end of it than the comedy side.
And it's kind of understated. Like the action starts playing out where the Autobots and Decepticons all come in and start fighting and everything.
Yeah.
And Autobots out of concern.
Yeah. And
Decepticons because like this was their plan. Sort of thing.
Right. I love how Devastator is like you remember in the Rankin Bass Rudolph stop motion?
Yes.
Where the Abominable Snowman puts the star on top of the tree?
Yes.
Devastator is the Abominable. Yeah. I also think it would be really funny if the construction crew that the cons ripped off is the same construction crew that they ripped off in Heavy Metal War.
Yes. Just this group of construction workers that...
They're constantly getting robbed by Constructicons.
They have like their own rivalry with the Constructicons. They think they're like another construction crew that's like, they keep stealing these jobs from us.
Right. But
and then they just have an understanding after a while where it's just like, oh, these guys, okay, go right ahead, take our resources.
Yeah. But that goes to show again that the Constructicons are, fundamentally they are Decepticons. They just steal resources from other people.
Yeah.
To get their job done.
They helped Grapple's vision just through underhanded means.
Right. And then Devastator, immediately just picks up Grapple and Hoist and takes them away once Megatron shows up. Which, I mean, part of that is because Megatron showed up, I gotta do what the boss says now.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it does seem like, they were still planning to betray them the whole time.
Exactly.
But what does Megatron think the tower does? He's like, they'll perish in their own tower.
Yeah.
But what is he expected to do? Like,
okay.
It's not a car smasher. It's supposed to create solar power. He's been obsessed with solar and hydroelectric power the whole series. Like, he should know that there's no smashing doors in there. I mean, I guess they added the doors later because that's where they find them at the end.
Right.
They got Han Solo'd,
Well, that's like it's kind of terrifying. It feels like building something and then being entombed in your own creation. Like, that's a horrifying fate.
Kind of like the Wall of China, like the stories about the bodies that just got put into the wall as they were building it.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I think,
I do like that story, though.
Yeah. But, like, again,
pyramids,
it shows Megatron's perspective, where he's solely result-oriented, where it's like, well, there's this solar tower, and it's like, so it gives us power, right? And it's like, I mean, yeah, and he's like, well, I don't care how it works, as long as it gives me power, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, again, that's also, like, what's his most precious resource?
Mm-hmm.
Resource.
Resource.
Like, he doesn't care where it comes from, just as long as he has it.
Right. Because that is what the energon cubes are, is the distillation of energy. It doesn't matter where they came from, but they're in the energon cubes.
It's pure energy. It's pure power.
Right, exactly. Just another reminder that that's all Megatron thinks about is power.
And it's also, like, ridiculously efficient. I like that you pointed out.
It is very efficient, especially compared to, like, the facility around the tower kind of reminds me of the electro cells, probably because of the Tesla coils and stuff, but it's way more efficient. They're doing 400 cubes versus the 3 cubes of the electro cells, and definitely more efficient than the solar needle, which made 1 cube at a time.
Yeah.
Grapple really does make an excellent machine.
Apparently.
Yeah. Also, the classic meme shows up here of Devastator laughing and then saying,
"It's the ha no."
Yeah. That's always funny. But I like how big scale aside, I like the really giant Devastator. The jets are flying around and stuff like that. Great battle.
It's a very well done battle.
I do think it's kind of a missed opportunity that they didn't rescue Grapple and Hoist earlier, and Grapple realizes the error of his ways and has to destroy the tower himself. But at the same time, I think it plays into the tragedy aspect of
exactly.
it, that Grapple never did destroy the tower himself, that he... it
was all kind of wrenched out of his control, sort of thing.
Right. And it plays into that aspect of he doesn't have control of the time that he lives in. He only has control of what he does during that time,
Right.
So things that he builds are going to get destroyed whether he helps destroy them or not, right? So...
Yeah, and, like, you have a pretty easy to write sort of conclusion where you tricked me, I'm gonna fight back, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the easy way out.
Right.
Because it works, we've talked about that before, the zeitgeist of storytelling, is
right.
just, what the formulas that work, right?
Yeah. And, like, that would have worked. That would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But I think the ending that they have has a lot more nuance to it.
Yeah.
Than
it's
that
more
ending
mature to do it this
way.
way.
Because even, like, the fake-out death that they have for Grapple and Hoist, the whole tower
happens off-screen. You don't know what happened to him, so that makes it more scary than if you saw what happened to him.
Like, the whole fight goes down, and then the tower gets destroyed, and... like, the length of time that they actually spend with, okay, we gotta start digging, and we gotta, like, try to find them.
It might not be as impactful, but it is, like, reminiscent of, like, in the Lord of the Rings movies, when they're all cheering, and then the volcano blows up, and they're like, oh, shoot, Frodo was still in there.
Right. And they're actually, like, really somber about it, and it feels...
I love that it takes until sunset for them to sift through all the wreckage.
Yeah. It's not like an insincere, like, fake out, like, no! And then it's very obvious that it's like, well, they'll be fine, sort of thing.
Right.
You don't think, like, oh, they're dead, but you definitely do feel the concern.
Oh, what happened to him? Because we still don't know what happened to him at this point.
Yeah, they just went into the tower, and that was it.
Yeah.
But them being pulled out of the rubble and, like, they get, like, a little reprimand and everything.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, Dad Optimus Prime comes into play. He does reprimand them, and rightfully so. They were collaborating with Decepticons.
Yeah.
Given, even if everyone involved had the purest intentions.
Yeah.
That's still irresponsible.
Right. But I like the little shoulder pats he gives them.
Yeah, a little tap.
Little tap.
And,
Also... This might just be an animation error, but do you think that Hoist actually lost his arm?
I noticed that. Like, it was just gone. And it shows up, like, in the next scene.
I think it's just a layering error, but I think it'd be funny if Hoist actually lost an arm.
Yeah, because they literally get Han Soloed.
They got Han Soloed, like, they're not frozen in carbonite, but they got, like, slammed between doors. They got, what's that? Iron Maiden.
Yeah. But
without the spikes.
Like,
Yeah, it's so sad how they got played so hard.
They got played so hard, and it does really, really lean into, like, the consequences of war. It forces people like Optimus, who, in a time of peace, would absolutely let them do this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to make hard choices.
Right.
And especially given the circumstances.
Right.
And it's also him realizing, like, I need to step off of my pedestal and let go of my pride that's associated with this. But it doesn't...
kind of ties into him tossing the model into the wreckage.
Yeah, it's not him losing a dream and being like, well, the dream was worthless. I think the lesson that he learns is that the dream that he has isn't bad because he can't achieve it.
Yeah. It's
still a good dream and a good idea. It just means that it's a not yet sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's the reasons behind your motivation behind
yeah,
the dream.
You can't
is it
have
for
your
personal
whole
glory, or is it for the benefit of others?
Right, and you can't have your identity tied up in what you achieve.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's why when he tosses the little model onto the rubbish pile, and they both reflect that it was beautiful.
Yes.
And I think the big lesson is that don't be sad that it's over. Just be happy that you had it at all.
Yeah.
And them, like, driving out of the sunset. And also, like, Grapple had to let go of his pride because it was blinding him from seeing the important things of it's who you build it with.
Right.
It's who you build your dream with.
Yeah.
And...
yeah, because, like, he built it with the Constructicons, and even though we were talking about there being that spark of hope for the Constructicons, ultimately they were a bad influence on him.
Right. Even if they were kindred spirits in the end.
Right. And then his real friends came to rescue him at the end.
Yeah, and it's literally
his Sam stuck with him throughout the whole...
because Hoist values Grapple for who he is, not what he achieves.
Yes, there you go. That's how you...
and it's like...
mic drop. Boom.
And I think there's even symbolism in the tower itself, where it's like a Tower of Babel thing. It's tall. It reaches towards the sun.
Right.
It gets too close to the sun, like Icarus. Yeah. And then it all comes crumbling down. But the Autobots, even despite everything, they dig him out of the rubble of a bad situation that he got himself into.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you got there.
He starts at the top of the tower, and then he ends up at the bottom of the tower.
Exactly.
Right, and his friends still dig him out and help him out.
Right. Yeah. And I think Hoist says that there'll be other towers to build, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this episode's, like, relatively speaking, the scope is, like, really, really small.
Right.
Like, very small scale.
Like, Cybertron's not about to smash into the planet. They've got the whole thing of 400 cubes a minute or whatever to the Decepticons, but that's not as quantifiable as
the ultimate doom.
Time warps are gonna tear this galaxy apart.
Exactly.
Because you messed with Dinobot Island. Yeah.
Or even like the ultimate doom. The amount of energon output that they were having during that was insane.
Right. Enough to keep Cybertron going for season 2.
Right. But it's really sincere. And I think heartfelt in a lot of ways with how the characters are depicted and the themes that they were going for.
Yeah.
And again, it's a show to sell toys, but it's a show to tell toy that has themes.
Yeah, it has themes, it has heart.
Yeah. We only close read as much material as is actually there.
Right.
And it means that there's a core here.
Yeah.
That there's an emotional core to this episode. Right. And I think that's what makes this...
and sometimes that comes through the creation... sometimes that's intended, and sometimes that comes through the creation process.
Yeah, you don't really see those elements until they're all on screen.
Right. And then, so that gives the opportunity for us to connect with the episode and talk about it and whatnot. And, that it's what keeps Transformers going throughout its time as a franchise.
Yeah.
It's what keeps people coming back to it as a franchise. Is that, while it is ultimately a toy commercial, it has heart.
Yeah.
People care about this stuff. People, people are inspired by this. People, something that's always stuck out to me is the leadership themes of Transformer.
Yes.
What does it mean to be a good leader and stuff like Optimus Prime as a role model, et
Right.
cetera, and
the themes of
when it
change
gets,
and adaptation.
When it gets too dark and edgy, it's not as good, and when it's too crass, it's not as good,
Yeah.
But when people really care about the characters and the stories, and just use it as a ability to tell stories.
Yeah, it's a launch pad.
As a launch pad to tell stories. And who knows? The writer of this episode might have just been writing something off the cuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta hand this in 5 minutes. But whatever happened, it turned out good.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter the intention behind it as long as it had an impact.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this my new favorite episode out of the ones that we've watched so far.
Yeah, I definitely rank this one way up there.
Yeah.
It's a solid episode.
And again, I totally understand not liking it.
Yeah,
Grapple's very easy to hate. But I think there's a lot of heart in this one.
Right. And with that, we'll go ahead and take a short break and then come back with our segments.
Woo!
And we're back with best quotes and weird robot lingo in our segments. So, some noteworthy one-liners, dialogue, and weird robot versions of idioms. Insecticon Syndrome. We have Beachcomber. I like how he tells the park ranger, Insecticons probably think humans are figments too.
That gives a really interesting perspective as to what Insecticon level of perception and stuff.
Yeah. But also that's just his...
It's also just a funny line.
Yeah, it's also just his perspective on it, though.
True.
Because we don't get it from the... but also it's kind of a perspective from Cybertronians, did they think humans were figments when they first saw them or something? And it's like, what is that weird little squishy thing?
You might not immediately see an organic life form as the dominant life form.
Right. I'm hungry! A relatable Insecticon.
Yeah.
Perhaps they should lead us, Starscream. Snidescream.
Genuinely, you have to think, would Starscream fall under anyone who overpowered Megatron? Would he just, instantly swap loyalties?
In Transformers 1, yes.
Yes.
That's literally what happens.
Exactly.
But, no, here I think he's just taking a jab at Megatron.
Okay.
And then Bombshell calls it Megatron and his merry men! And then Starscream with Roast-encrusted cockroach!
The rust encrusted is very hard to say.
Rust-encrusted cockroach. Great stinger. And a tongue twister, too.
Jazz with, what? Electrochemical indigestion!
Heartburn! If I have a heart!
Again, the Insecticon's wondering if they have internal organs.
Yeah, that's what it was. I think earlier I said that it was he was wondering if he had a stomach, but it was heartburn.
Yes. You flip-flop your circuits.
Yeah, and then we get a mention of the cranial chamber.
Cranial chamber. The Dinobot Island starts off strong with one that we used to quote quite a bit. Is Huffer. Beryllium baloney, Wheeljack.
Well, it's probably where, is it Slag? Says...
Oh, yeah, me, Slags, to call you beryllium baloney.
Yeah, in the movie, one of the Dinobots quotes Huffer, saying beryllium baloney, when they're lost on Quintessa.
Me, Grimlock, say you made of cesium saloni.
Cesium salami.
Cesium salami. Beryllium baloney. Sludge always being completely oblivious to everything and just huh? What that is?
It's just what that is, Snarl.
I just love how he's always looking around, huh? What? Who? What?
He had one chance at competency when he noticed the Autobot symbol was the same.
Yes.
And then after that, he's just completely oblivious to everything else. And then Spike inside Power Glove going, "Oh no!
Oh no!"
All of his screams are hilarious. Jacob made good comment on that.
He's a scream queen of Transformers.
Like Willy in Temple of Doom.
Yes.
And then I mentioned this also. What is the bird planning on hatching out of these eggs? Battleships? I like that.
Curious, because if you think about it, Dinobot Island could be like a Bermuda Triangle situation where ships like disappear.
Yeah.
So they might have eaten a battleship at some point.
He's gonna hatch it like Yoshi.
Yeah. I love all of the training montage of Grimlock and just telling the Dinobots where it's like, insert Dinobot, do blank stuff.
Snarl, do tail stuff. Swoop, do flying stuff.
Yeah.
Love it. Some great leadership. And then just rotten shooting, but getting better.
Yeah.
Getting better, but still not more better enough.
Yeah.
I say that to myself sometimes.
Again, I love that insight into Grimlock's character where he's like, he is competent, he is able to process, like, we have room for improvement and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just the way he expresses it sounds very dumb.
Gooder, Swoop, much more gooder.
Exactly.
I vibe with this grammar.
Much more gooder.
I vibe with it. And then Megatron mentioning it's beyond the calculations of a Cybertronic electropod. What is that? Is it a calculator? Is it like a computer? Or did he say electronic pond?
It makes me wonder if Starscream's PhD is legit. Is he actually a scientist?
My favorite dialogue from this episode. Barbarians on woolly mammoth.
And then, of course, Starscream's lightning Megatron, a bad omen.
Yeah.
Ah!
And then we mentioned this earlier. Starscream saying, "Draining the energy may disrupt the chronological balance of the island. It already drifts precariously in the sea of time." And Megatron coming back with scientific gobbledygook. And then Huffer just, "What's that? More bad news?"
Again, like, reinforcing his perspective as the Eeyore of...
Yeah. That, once again, character sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Not sleight of hand, shorthand.
And then probably my favorite dialogue exchange is talking horseless carriages. What's next?
Disarmament, acid pellet style.
I remember quoting that to death.
Oh yeah, ice cold prowl. I'd rather stay in my stunning auto mode. Yeah, but then I couldn't do this. Tracks
being the zestiest Autobots.
That's one way of putting it. And then I just have written down here.
Hey, Blitzwing, thank you.
Warpath is just.
This was a huge spotlight on
man.
Warpath. He's so out of left field.
Bad. I think this is the best that his weird dialogue comes through, because I was watching our episode with him in it, and he's just kind of annoying with the weird
It kind of
dialogue,
feels pretty forced. You have to lean very hard into it.
In this episode, it comes out great. Yeah.
He has to literally be on a rampage while he's throwing out all these one-liners.
And then Grimlock just serving Megatron all the bumper. Just, you wrong. You ugly too.
You ugly too. It also helps that the vocoder goes out in that line, so it's just like a really funny
It's just really petty Grimlock.
Yeah.
And then from the Master Builders, we have, of course, the iconic "Am I drooling correctly, Spike?"
Yeah. The word is dribbling. And he tosses the basketball back at Spike, just absolutely just trashing him, like sending him to the floor with the force of it, and says, "Here, Spike, compute quickly."
Yep. We get Condition Magenta and Disaster Code Blue as some of the teletrans signals, apparently.
I think they just get made up per episode.
Yeah. But apparently, I'm guessing Magenta refers to like an Autobot down, and then Disaster Code Blue is the Decepticons are up to something.
Maybe.
I don't know, something like that.
I'm driving for a layoff. Optimus
yeah.
getting all of the terminology mixed up on basketball. I think he knows. He's just doing it to be like a funny dad to Spike.
Yeah. That's totally something that, a dad or a mom would do to like, oh, that's Bumblebee, right?
Yeah.
No, Mom, that's Ironhide.
Yeah. And he's absolutely balling in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's dunking on the rest of the Autobots. So I think he's really, really good at basketball and knows all of the stuff. He's just being a goofy dad.
And then Grapple I'm so excited. I'm shorting my own circuits.
Yeah. It is very wholesome with, seeing everything come together.
Whack, Zack, Zarge!
Charge!
What's a Zarge, Warpath? Zarge.
It's the set. Personally, I think there's a dark angle to Warpath. I think all of the funny sound effects he makes are the sounds of the people that he's killed.
And then, he said, they don't call me Warpath because I'm gentle.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
They don't call me
nice.
Warpath because I'm nice.
Is that in Dinobot Island?
I simultaneously love Warpath, but I think he's also a psychotic killer.
We get a little more flora and fauna of Cybertron with Powerglide mentioning Sheepacrons.
Sheepacrons. Implying that anything with like a cron
always makes me think of Unicron.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Maybe they're more deadly than we think.
Yeah. They just when they transform into like it's a sheep, but then it transforms into the mouth of Unicron, and just sucks things in. It just mows up. That's how it mows up grass. Anybody want some economy-sized wall plaques?
Ironhide making light of a very grim situation.
Han Solo. Anyway. Favorite characters in this batch of episodes and why?
I'd say Grapple and Hoist. If I had to pick one, probably Grapple. But also Grimlock. He's in this batch of episodes, so he's always a top contender.
Each of these episodes has a standout character because it is their main character and they just stand out. Megatron and Bombshell are standout characters in Plague of Insecticons. Grimlock, standout character in the Dinobot Islands. Hoist and Grapple, standout characters in their Spotlight episode, The Master Builders. But I gotta go with my man, the Barbarian. I'm sorry, the Woolly Mammoth.
The Woolly Mammoth.
Woolly Mammoth is one of my favorite animals. Just because when I was a kid, there was a documentary about a frozen woolly mammoth, and it scared me because I thought that this was going to be a Jurassic Park situation where this mammoth got out and was going to wreck the town. Even though it's way far away, I thought that this thing was going to come all the way over here and.
I totally forgot about that because I remember you being scared of that, but never seeing the thing.
Yeah, what was creepy was that there was this sound effect in the background and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of an eerie documentary. I don't know why.
It was that Jurassic Park craze of could this be real?
Yeah. But it was an actual frozen woolly mammoth that they dug out of the ice and stuff. It saw its horns out of later on, I just because of that, it just kind of turns around. I end up liking woolly mammoths.
Exactly.
And stuff like that. And
we are often most fond of the things that scare us as kids.
I cannot wait to get to Big Convoy.
Yeah.
That's one toy I'd like to collect. Big Convoy. Anyway.
Magic Slidey Hand Tech.
Yes. Read us out some bizarre gadgets that transform out of their various body parts.
Oh man, it sounds weird when you say it like that. So the hologram is coming out of Hound's forehead in Insecticon Syndrome.
Yeah, usually it comes out of his gun or his missile or something,
Interesting placement. Soundwave has a little stethoscope thingy.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. There's a glowing arm radio that Bombshell has.
Yep.
I always like when Optimus adjusts the settings on his rifle.
Yeah.
It adds to his sharpshooter aspect.
Right.
Soundwave has like what is essentially the Nintendo Power Glove at one point in this episode.
Yeah.
And like the cable fingers like connect to the computer.
Right.
It's very funny looking.
We talked about this briefly. They mass produced Sideswipe's Rocket Pack.
Yeah.
And then B has a wrist comm. This is in Dinobot Island now.
Oh yeah, he has
Power Glide has a forehead repair laser.
Yeah, there's a lot of forehead lasers, which kind of makes sense when you look at it.
Ratchet has a finger welder. It's so funny. Looks like a little gun comes out of his finger, like his finger retracts.
We see it a lot.
Has another wrist comm.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Megatron has a wrist comm.
Like characters will just spontaneously have a little piece of their forearm just kind of pop up as like a wrist comm. Yeah. And I've always liked that because it's unique to each one.
Masterpiece Optimus Prime, the first one, I don't know if the later one does or not, but he has like a little computer that pops up out of his arm, and I always thought that was the coolest thing, and I was so confused why Starscream was on one of them.
Yes.
Because there's little stickers, and Bumblebee's on one. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Starscream? Why is he talking to Starscream?
He's plotting a coup.
It would have helped me make up a lot of fun little stories if I had a Starscream at the time.
Yeah.
Now I have 2 or 3 Starscream.
Right.
At the time. Anyway, Laserbeak's famous head cam from Transformers the movie shows up here.
Yes. Very detailed.
Well, actually, it's from the original, the first episode. Doesn't he have a?
Yeah, I think he does.
I think it's different though. Like
it's a laser.
His ears.
It's a Laserbeak staple that he has a camera in his head.
Yeah. Ratchet also has a welding hand. And Sideswipe has his chisel hands.
Yes. Ironhide has a glue gun, but it's like a weird triangle barrel situation.
Yeah.
It's weirdly detailed for just showing up once.
And then Sunstreaker has like Sith lightning?
Yeah, but it's like coming out of his gun, but it's enough
No, it's coming out of his hand.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
No,
okay.
I'm not talking about the one where he...
yes, that's right, he does. Yeah, I don't really have an explanation for that. Maybe it's like
he just has like Sith lightning coming out
it's
of
like
his
a sun corona or something like that. I don't know.
Do you want me to, now that I have access to the book, do you want me to look up Sunstreaker and Hound's profiles, see if we've got anything on them to
Sure.
explain
Go ahead and pause.
Yeah, no, go ahead and finish off the list here.
Okay. So the water skis show back up again.
Yay!
We have Jazz pops out of his hips these weird speakers. His speakers always come out of different parts of him.
Yeah.
Like what do you think is the optimal Jazz speaker placement?
I like the hips. I had a toy from the Classics line had them come out on his shoulder wings.
The shoulders feel like they make the most sense.
The shoulder wings aren't there in the cartoon, though. The door wings. Probably to differentiate him from Prowl.
Right. Optimus mentions that he has...
I like the idea that they just come out of various different places, but I think my favorite is that he has to turn into car mode to use them, and they come out of his trunk like in Attack of the Autobots.
Right. That actually makes a lot more sense if he's sonically only able to support it with like his vehicle form. Like it makes him more structurally stable and he doesn't blow out his own audio sensors.
Kind of like, Blaster needs to turn into
a radio. Yeah.
A radio.
Optimus mentions that his repair systems are fixing up the damage.
Yep.
There are headlight lasers.
Yep.
And Megatron has chest binoculars.
Oh yeah, those are in those two are in the Master Builders.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Return of the Headlight Lasers and the chest binoculars. He's got a lot of stuff in his... See, as a kid, I used to think that all Transformers, because when Optimus passes the Matrix to Ultra Magnus, he's already got a Matrix compartment to put it in.
Right.
So I just figured that all Transformers have Matrix compartments, but they just fill them with different things.
Yeah.
Megatron's chest compartment is filled with binoculars.
Yeah. I've got this hole in my chest. Might as well use it.
All right. So to follow up on
Sunstreaker.
I've pulled out Transformers Universe because I have access to it now, and reading his abilities in Autobot mode, Sunstreaker wears a right shoulder-mounted laser-guided ground-to-air missile launcher. Each missile is the equivalent of 450 pounds of TNT and can down a
Jeez.
Decepticon jet fighter at a maximum distance of 37.5 miles. He also carries an electron pulse gun. Alright, this kind of helps us out with keeping the time warp open. He also carries an electron pulse gun capable of emitting at 300 bursts per second a beam of highly energized electrons. The high rate of emission makes it effectively a continuous stream of electrons. A sustained burst of 1.5 seconds will burn a 3-inch hole in a 0.5-inch thick plate of titanium alloy steel. There's too many numbers in this. His upper torso construction incorporates a tough polymer steel skin, making him particularly resistant to artillery fire. So I think that it is what we are talking about. Like the Sith lightning coming out of his hands is just an extension of probably just an extension of the electron gun.
Yeah.
And then I think that the him keeping the time warp open is just him feeding it more energy to keep it open longer.
Okay.
And we've read Hound in a previous episode, I think. He does have some infrared abilities. It might just be something to do with his holograms, like Jacob was saying about the hard light.
True.
And on to our next segment. Favorite errors, any noteworthy animation, sound design, or lore mistakes. You know, I was thinking about a previous episode where I mentioned we're sticking with our, I think it was when we first nailed down our segments, and I said, we're sticking with our segments, and if you don't like it, go listen to a different podcast. And I'm like, why did I say that? You could just stop listening to the podcast after we've analyzed the episodes.
True.
If you don't like the segments.
Timestamps,
Anyway,
baby.
But yeah, I mean, if you got time to kill, or if you if you just want some noise in the background, keep on listening to our segments.
It was like, go listen to a different podcast. No, please don't go.
Yeah, we like all of our fans.
Exactly.
We've got a lot of comments, and we appreciate them.
We appreciate you guys for listening to us ramble.
Did you see the book somebody put in one of the comments?
I don't think so. I'll have to go look at it.
Yeah. This person put like a whole fan fiction to explain how the Constructicons it's like 9-10 paragraphs long of like how the Constructicons should go back in time to explain all the plot holes in their I'm
a big fan of that.
It was pretty interesting.
All right.
Yeah, but anyway, on to our favorite errors.
All right. So, Autobot Soundwave. I don't know what. Wait.
Oh, yeah. He's got an Autobot symbol on his chest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Red Leg Optimus Prime. It reminds me of the red Buzz Lightyear in test footage for Toy Story movie. But yeah, he's got red legs. Weird Wheeljack voice sound effects. As he's climbing the tower, he's got all this like weird computer noise.
Yeah.
His ears light up. I don't get it.
Ironhide pops open his arm at one point when he's
really
like holding on. And it's just like a really detailed shot of, I guess, his tendons failing as he falls.
Yeah. And then he's also got his name written on the inside of his arm.
Wild.
In English.
He's got a tattoo of his own name.
Yeah, on the inside of his arm, in English. Not really an error, but just something interesting to point out. Spike is a little late to warn Megatron. I talked about time and whatnot in the episode.
Bike!
Yeah, Optimus is calling Spike a bike.
Yes.
Another reference to Wheeljack threatening to turn him into a motorcycle.
There we go.
Dinobot Island. Why does Powerglide just crash land when he's bringing Spike to the island?
Yeah, he's just...
Could have landed. Come on. Island Part 2.
Hounds speaks through the vessel of Huffer at one point.
Yeah, his voice comes out of that. And then Blitzwing's face on the bottom of the tank is funny.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, when he transforms, his face just stays there.
Nice.
Funny. The Master Builders. Autobot to Decepticon logo transition while going from grapple to grapple, still in the arc. Huh? He's not a Decepticon.
He's not evil. Come on.
You didn't have any Autobot to Autobot flips? Do they have Autobot to Autobot flips?
I think they do.
I don't think Spike knows how time zones work, though. He says, that tower is so tall, the top is in a different time zone.
I don't think it's vertical, Spike.
Time zones don't go up, they go across.
Exactly.
All right. Next segment.
TF Wiki.
Go button trivia page.
Yeah.
So this week, last time, nobody got asked a question, but the time before that, I answered a question, and this week, Hayden's being asked a question. So it is my turn to bring a TF Wiki Go button trivia page, random page of random knowledge, and I forgot what I put on here. Okay. Cromar. He's a boxy looking fellow.
I look at the art on this. He has just a full-on rectangle with vague fist detailings at the end nub. And I'm a huge fan of it.
Cromar is the leader of the Power Dashers.
Okay.
That is the beginning of his thing. Stars pack in flyers. The Power Dashers featured in 2 early recruiting messages sent to humans by the Autobots. So the thing of the Power Dashers is basically, if I remember correctly...
Yeah, what is their deal?
I'm going to skip down to... He has a short TF Wiki page. But I'm going to skip down to the toy section, where he looks even more blocky.
Oh, wow. He's just got solid bricks for arms.
He's basically part of the very first year of the Transformers product. Power Dasher is a redeco of the Diaclone Sky Dasher, and he transforms into a Cybertronic jet. He's a mail-in order. Basically, you would be part of like the Transformers Club sort of thing, and you would get like these little cutouts, kind of like box tabs, right? And then you'd mail them in, costing $3 or 2 robot points, and then they would send you this. So it's not a guy that you would buy in the store, but you could get him in the mail. Jet Mode Power Dasher was the only one pictured in the ads, but the type you got ended up being random. You might have gotten the drill or the car instead. The jet form, apparently later he ended up with the name Cromar, probably because of his chrome arms.
Chrome arm.
Chrome arm, yeah. He's actually gotten a new toy in the War for Cybertron Siege, where he is a redeco of Autobot 6 Gun, which is the one that comes with Fort Max. One of the guys. I believe these are, he's part of the combat system where you can take him apart and plug him into another character as extra weaponry and stuff. But the original toy, it has a pullback motor, which you pull it back, you let it go, it zooms across the table and then transforms.
Yeah. Cool.
He also appears in the Dreamwave Generation 1 continuity, the 2005 IDW continuity, and the 2019 IDW continuity, and the Generation Select special comic. So he gets around.
Interesting. I've never heard of him.
He's just one of those little random footnotes in Transformers history pops up from time to time.
I have heard of it mentions the Power Dashers, Omnibots, and Time Warriors were all kind of the same, like stars, pack-in flyers. And I have heard of the ones in the Omnibots, but Downshift is in there.
The Time Warriors, I believe, are the ones that turn into the watches.
Yes.
Which I believe I mentioned earlier this episode to Jacob.
I think you did,
about the little watch. Anyway.
Cool.
So he's just kind of a neat little toy that just kind of exists. And he shows up every once in a while to continue existing.
Nice.
So good on him for surviving all this time.
The mo you know.
And on to our next segment.
Cliffhanger question.
Yep.
But, Hayden, I do have a question for you. A cliffhanger question.
Yes.
Yes, for the cliffhanger question. Jacob, would you like to ask Hayden a cliffhanger question?
I do. What do you want the Transformers 1 sequel to be about?
Oh, that's
and
good
what
one.
should the title be? Two-parter.
Well, obviously Transformers 2, spelled TWO.
Of course. Yeah, the trick question. Trick question on that second part.
All right, very nice. And you, dear audience, will have to wait until next episode to hear Hayden's response to that question.
And with that, that wraps up this episode. So, once again, thank you all so much for joining us and listening to our ramblings. And thank you once again for Jacob for joining us and being our first guest on the podcast.
Woo! Yeah. We hope you all will join us again next episode where we will be discussing Auto Berserk, BroBots, and Megatron's Master Plan, Part 1 and 2.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's very good. There's a lot of Part 1, Part 2 deals in Season 2.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time of this recording, these Transformers episodes are available on the Hasbro Pulse YouTube channel, as well as on DVD and several other streaming services, such as Tubi.
By the way, we are not sponsored by, nor have been sponsored by any of these things up to this point. We just wanted to let you know how to watch these delightful shows.
Yes, because it can be confusing to listen along without any context whatsoever.
Now, one last thing. Since this episode comes out in November, we will be taking a short break in our regular schedule for the month of December, and we will be back in January. Maybe we'll put out a special short video or something will pop up in December on the YouTube channel, but not a full episode.
Exactly. We'll still be around. We'll just be...
taking a break, getting caught up, getting ahead of our recording.
Going big.
Yeah. So you all have a wonderful season, and happy Thanksgiving, happy Christmas, happy
assorted holidays in the later half of the year.
happy whatever. You can cut all this out if you want. But anyway, we will be back in January, and we will see you then.
Indeed.